This is the E-Commerce Edge podcast with your host, Jason Greenwood. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the E-Commerce Edge podcast. I would like to welcome our next incredible guest, Mr. William Gasner from Stack Influence. Welcome, William.
Thank you, Jason.
It's a pleasure to have you along for the ride today, mate. And you were saying that I'm based in Mexico now, and you said you love Puerto Escondido, and for the last few years, you've made a trip down there every single year.
Absolutely. And we've actually had some team meetings in Playa del Carmen as well. So I spent about a month and a half there a few years ago. So big fan of Mexico.
Love it. Love it. You have to come and visit me in Puebla at some stage. We got a spare room here in our house that we bought here in Puebla. So yeah, you'll have to come and hang out. We got a nice terrace out there with barbecue. We'll have some Coronas overlooking the city of Puebla. It's not bad.
That would be fantastic. I appreciate the sentiment.
Love it. Listen, before we get into Stack Influence, what it is, what it does, how you do it, tell us how you got into this wonderful space. You've been doing Stack Influence for nearly 8 years now, or 7.5 years now. But before that, I would call you a serial entrepreneur. I think isn't that the trendy term to call it these days? You founded like five or six companies now, platforms, apps, etc. So tell us how you even got to become this kind of entrepreneur, tech, commerce, app guru.
Sounds like a plan. So my parents were always entrepreneurial and ran a local store in my hometown for 30 years. And so inspired myself and my siblings to get into entrepreneurship pretty early. Started my first technically business at 13, selling handmade cutting boards at farmers markets. And that just consistently evolved to threw me into the e-commerce space, web development space, ran a web development marketing company for almost 10 years, and all the while building different products, traveling around the globe, living the digital nomad life for a bit. Back in Rhode Island now, which is where I grew up, be closer to family and friends. But during that journey, built up a few really successful e-commerce brands and utilized influencer marketing to really grow the brands, build a lot of different assets, promote them, get the word out, etc. Used every single tool out there did a huge amount of stuff manually, and realized a lot of big holes in the market and the processes, and started building out a lot of internal tools with my business partners, who currently are the same business partners in Stack Influence, and building these things out to just automate the process, help scale up these types of promotions, and then had a gap after selling one of our e-commerce brands in some time. And along this way, a few of our other kind of e-commerce, you could say colleagues, wanted to get access to our different tools that we had built out internally and started spreading the word about it. They loved it. And we were like, wow, this actually could be a business venture in itself. And 8 years to the day, Stack Influence was born, and we're off to the races. That's kind of the backstory. I can go deeper into any topics if you'd like about my e-commerce journey, but that's the long and short of it.
Love it. Scratching an itch, eating your own dog food,
That's
whatever.
Exactly right.
Pick your tome.
Yep.
The reality is that, I think some of the best business ideas are scratch and itch moments where you're like, okay,
Absolutely.
well, I've built this thing. I use this thing. Seems like it's pretty helpful. Let's see if there's a market for it. Let's put it out there. Let the market decide whether it has a value or not. And here, 8 years
100%.
later, the market has obviously decided that your platform has a place in the world, right? And that it's valuable in its own right.
Absolutely.
Now, when you looked out there, because if I Google it today or I chat GPT it today, there's probably 50 major influencer marketing platforms out there, influencer management platforms out there. They range all the way from do-it-yourself platforms that allow you to connect to creators or influencers that you identify yourself, whether it be on Instagram, wherever it might be. Some of them are influencer marketplaces where they play the connector game, where they connect brands with influencers based on filtration and attributes of both parties. And there are some hybrid platforms that do that more. Sometimes these platforms will connect you to talent management of those creators, and effectively you're working through the talent manager as opposed to working directly with the creator. There's a lot of permutations of this type of technology out there. But when you first started the business, when you looked out there at the market, where were the gaps that you identified that you said, this platform's pretty good, but it doesn't do this. This platform's pretty good, but it doesn't do this. Where were the gaps that you saw that said, bugger it, I'm just going to build it myself instead?
Great question, and also great overview of kind of the software platform marketplace sphere, you could say. So, first and foremost, just as a quick overview for those who don't totally know about the different types of influencers, because the industry has evolved quite a bit in the past few decades. Influencers start out predominantly with larger creators, right? Celebrities, hundreds of thousands, millions of followers, get a product in their hands, promote it to a large audience. Those promotions can work really well and effective and still do. However, the issues that we face, and we utilized a lot of what the industry calls mega or macro influencers along our journey. The issue we faced utilizing them was that basically a lot of times it could be hit or miss, and you put a lot of your eggs in one basket. Those celebrity mega influencers are not cheap, and you're going to be shelling out thousands of dollars to do a promotion, and if not tens of thousands, some people charge millions, which is crazy. But if the promotion doesn't work, you just put all of your marketing budget into one thing. And a lot of the tools out there that existed started with that target. We called it the sexy side, right? They went after, and to your point, like kind of an agent model, right? We'll get you in touch with this person, we'll negotiate these kind of fees, exactly what the posting guidelines, etc. And those platforms actually work really well if you are doing mega influencer promotions. Is here's a database of all these people, or we have an intimate relationship with them, more of that agent agency model. And we're going to negotiate terms as well as contracts with 1, 2, maybe 5 people. As the industry evolved and as we evolved our e-commerce brands, what we started to find is that smaller creators, what now the industry calls nano or micro influencers, were a much better bang for our buck. And the reason being is that fees weren't as high. A lot of times we could just trade an existing, just one of our products for a promotion. So it was literally what also people call product seeding. And even though these influencers, these smaller ones, had much more tight knit, only maybe a few thousand followers or tens of thousands of followers, their engagement levels with their audience were much higher because the people who are following them because they really are interested in what that type of person is promoting. May it be their friends, their family, close acquaintances as well. So it's a trusted promotion. They also respond more to messaging, like they're more flexible in essence. Like Kim Kardashian might promote your product, but I don't think she's going to be responding to every single person who DMs her or responds to in the comment section. Now, the challenge with these smaller creators, even though you have all these benefits of being more cost effective and higher engagement, higher conversions, et cetera, is that they have a smaller reach, right? And so working with 2, 3, 5 of them isn't going to be a very effective marketing campaign. It can be very similar to the larger ones. Sometimes it's totally hit or miss how things work. So what we found is you really need to scale them up. And that was one of the biggest challenges we faced with all of the solutions out there, because the majority of them were either a database model, here's millions of people, here's some tools to cold outreach to them, but the platform doesn't really have a relationship with the influencers. And that again works well if you're trying to get only a few of them to do some promotions. But if you're really trying to scale up hundreds, thousands of what we call product seeding camp, very difficult. Like huge amount of back and forth. Every other person is trying to charge you a different fee, tracking everything, making sure you're doing this, and especially if you want to do it on a consistent basis. That was the biggest challenge. And also on the agency side, right? Like agencies couldn't scale for us. They could maybe get a few of them, but they were utilizing a lot of times the kind of software tools with the databases to even run their campaigns, right? And also then they're charging a fee on top of everything. And so it became way too expensive to even run through them. So what we found was a marketplace model was the best solution for this, but no one had really built out a really robust community of these smaller types of creators yet and set a tone to how people negotiate fees, how you get people product, how you make sure they post. The solutions out there just didn't exist. And so that's really where we saw this big hole, was that like micro nano promotions were the best bang for your buck. At the time, social platforms were also dramatically changing to where it used to be the case, you have 1 million followers, you post on social media, if all 1 million of those people are on social that week, they're pretty much, the majority of them are going to see that promotion. Nowadays, socials changed where only a portion of the people who follow you actually see a post. And it makes sense for the social platforms because as social media evolved, you started following all these people, and then like you didn't really care about all of them, and then your feed got filled up with stuff that you weren't super engaged with, and then you left Instagram or left TikTok, etc. And those platforms did not like that, and so they realized, let's fill up people's feed with actually profile. Maybe they're following 1,000, 5,000 people, but let's only show them content from the people who maybe the top 10% of people who they engage with. So that shifted this kind of model. And then the second big evolution, which really TikTok spearheaded, was if some piece of content is really engaging to a follower base, they're going to start showing that to people who aren't following you. And so it basically leveled the playing field to where someone with literally 100 followers can have a post that gets millions of views, right? Gets that celebrity reach. And now the idea of diversifying risk across hundreds or thousands of smaller creators became even more valuable because you can get like a few winners in that batch, spread that kind of marketing budget across a lot more people. You're generating way more content to reutilize on other marketing and advertising campaigns. And that is really why we pursued that model. And there just wasn't solutions out there to solve that problem.
That does make sense. When I think about, the platforms that I'm on now, I'm less on Instagram. I'm more on LinkedIn. I'm more on Reddit. I'm more on some of these other alternate platforms rather
Absolutely.
than the mainstream platforms. A little bit of TikTok here and there, although it's highly addictive, so I try to actively avoid it. I actively avoid it where I can.
Yep.
I think, to your point, I think there's two things happening. One is the power of mega influencers is actually declining, for a start off.
Absolutely.
So, and they've done it to themselves in the sense that many of the mega creators, every second post is a promoted post. And so the value that they bring is decreased. They're milking it for all it's worth, and I don't
Yeah.
blame them. Hey,
Yeah.
get that bag. Sweet. Awesome. Whatever.
Yep.
By definition, that's going to decrease your influence.
Absolutely.
And it's questionable whether you might have 20 million followers or 30 or whatever. Is it The Rock that has 50 million or whatever it is?
Yeah.
It's questionable whether all of those followers are actually going to be reasonably influenced by you. Of course, a percentage will be. A lot of people will follow celebrities just to see what they're wearing or just to see where they're going, or the next movie that's coming out or whatever it might be. They won't necessarily be actively following them for life advice or product buying advice.
Yep.
And then we have a scenario where a lot of these mega creators and mega influencers now have their own brands, their own products. We have The Rock has Zoa, and he's got Tamana or whatever it is with his tequila, and he's got all these products that he's
Absolutely.
shilling for that are his companies. And so it's his own products, his own merch, his own everything. And he does brand deals where he takes equity in certain companies in exchange for promoting those products and brands.
Totally.
And so the reality is, I think people are wising up a little
Yeah.
bit
Yeah.
to the commercial benefit or the commercial influence of the influencers themselves. And so that's where I think my sense tells me that opens the door for anybody with less than 100,000 followers on any given platform to have a much greater impact on an audience that chooses to follow them, not because they're a star or a celebrity, but because they actually like their content. And I
Completely.
think and that content brings value in some way other than just selling me stuff and
Yeah. Yeah.
other than just curating stuff.
Yep.
And so I think that, when you set out to set up this platform, are there some general guidelines in place? Because the reality is that most brands, they themselves don't know how to engage with influencers.
Yep.
The influencers themselves, if they're small, if they have less than 100,000 followers, they don't necessarily have a standard rate card. They don't necessarily have a standard engagement model or engagement metrics that they've tracked. They don't necessarily have a talent representation that they send people to. They're usually managing it all themselves. And so neither party is really that experienced. Neither party really
Totally.
knows what they're doing. They know that they would like to work together, and they know that there would probably be some benefits in working together, but they don't know the mechanics of how to actually make that happen. How do I, as a brand, create a brief that makes sense to the creator? How do I give the creator enough creative freedom to be able to create something that they like and enjoy, that's genuine in nature? How do I make sure that they get paid fairly, but I'm not overpaying them? How do I make sure that we try to create, wherever possible, a longer term partnership that's as opposed to just a one post on Instagram partnership? And then making sure that transaction, that the payments are seamless, that we can actually get the money or the products into that person's hands. We make sure we can validate that they've actually received it, that we set a reasonable time frame for the content to be created and delivered after they receive it. So
Yeah,
it just, there's a lot of mechanics to this
exactly.
that the creator and the brand don't necessarily know how to navigate.
Yep.
And that feels like the main problem you're trying to solve.
You're absolutely right. Every single thing in our platform is automated for a brand, besides allowing the brand control over points that you mentioned: how your product is displayed, what your posting guidelines are, what your goals are, what your time frame is. And again, going back, dealing with 2, 3, 5 celebrity influencers might not be that much bandwidth to negotiate all this stuff, right? You want to scale that up to hundreds or thousands of people, like even the platforms out there that have this database, if they can find enough people, like you doing all of that legwork, even with tools to send payments, to negotiate things, to convey posting guidelines, it's an insane amount of work. And even there's like some of our clients, Fortune 500 companies, Unilever as an example, like they have a 30-person influencer team. Like they pursue this and they still use our platform because it's impossible for their team to manage this type of collaboration if they actually want to scale it. So we set out to, as exactly what you mentioned, automate and create standardized processes for both the brands and the influencers. On the influencer side, we actually, the baseline payment is just product compensation. And then they're gamified to get monetarily rewarded based off of how often they post, what the results are from their post, etc. And so very standard agreements for them. They get shopping marketplaces where it's curated products specifically to what they're really interested in, how they dynamically use the marketplace, and what products they promote. They're going to get fed in those specific things. And there's also limitations to, we don't just allow creators to a really valid and important point that you brought up with the downfall of larger influencers, which is that if you do too many product promotions, you become inauthentic, you become less trustworthy. And it quickly happens, right? Like you used to think that Kim Kardashian actually really liked some of these products, and now you realize that she's getting paid millions of dollars to promote them, right? And it's the same thing with a smaller creator, right? If you keep promoting products nonstop, even though we make money off that and we'd like you to keep doing stuff, your value as an actual influencer to your community diminishes, right? And so we actually limit how many times people can collaborate with brands on our platform to spread things out, right? And to make sure that it's an authentic collaboration. And certain ways we do that is you can't pick 20 products at a time. You have to go one by one. We want to create a layer of intent for people to actually collaborate with a brand. And by also not monetarily paying them right off the bat, it makes someone only collaborate with something they actually want, like a real customer. You pay someone $10,000, they'll probably promote anything you want, right? Maybe with a few limitations. But if someone's doing something fundamentally just for a product, it's like, you better really want that product.
And the
And
product better be bloody good too.
yeah, exactly. To be worth your time. And so that creates this new kind of shift in authenticity, because we like to also think of our community as almost, try to coin the term passion promoters, right? It's if you're actually really passionate about certain types of books or certain makeup brands or maybe like martial arts, right? And you are only picking products that are in that kind of real interest. Like maybe all day you post content about, let's just say, working out, right? And we give you some protein powder, right? Your friends know, first off, you're not going to pick any protein powder to utilize. You're going to actually vet the brand before you do that. Second, your friends might actually really know that you are really into health and wellness and working out. And so when you promote something, like, they're going to trust it. It's at the essence word of mouth marketing, which has been the most powerful form of marketing throughout history, right? And so do that at scale, and you have a very powerful marketing tactic. And then on the brand side, very similar, or exactly what you mentioned, is like a lot of brands have no idea what they're doing, how to create a brief, how many influencers they should be working with, how they should be choosing these people. And so we help, again, while still allowing them to curate things to what their specific brand kind of messaging and aesthetic is, because that's obviously important. We don't know that, like the brand knows it themselves, but while still giving them guidelines to say, hey, these are specific tags you should probably be utilizing. These are things, recommendations that you should probably be pushing this person in the right direction. This is the type of content that you should use as examples for types of promotions. And these are also tips and tricks to like how to create a longer term relationship with these people. Because that's a big thing now that it's not just, it used to be the fact that like maybe one-off promotions were great. Now the real reality is like create a longer term relationship with influencers. Don't just do a one-off promotion, turn them into affiliates, ambassadors, send them more products, create an almost internal community around your brand. And that's how you become really powerful. And yeah, so basically set out to create that automated fashion or system and then enable brands to also scale up and not just have to work with only a few people and do all the manual legwork themselves.
And let's talk platforms and let's talk B2B, because I'm a nano influencer, for
Yeah.
lack of a better term, on LinkedIn. I got 33,000 followers, which is, it's well under 100,000. So I
Yeah.
guess I'd be considered a nano influencer. Just in the last 6 months, really, I've had more and more platform vendors, people that play in the spaces that I play in, reach out and say, "Hey, we'd like to do a collab." It's even new to me because this is not something I normally
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
Hey, we'd like to maybe do a promoted post. We'd like
Totally.
maybe for you to host a webinar alongside us or something like that. Maybe give us a shout out on your podcast or whatever it is. And when we think about the platforms that your platform supports, is it primarily Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, or is it pretty much any platform, including the likes of LinkedIn or Reddit or whatever? Is it designed really to work for any platform, any influencer on any platform? And how prevalent is B2B collaborations starting to become for either platform vendors or service providers wanting to ally themselves with influencers in the business world for their specific vertical? How common is that becoming? Because historically, influencers all been about physical products,
Yeah.
physical goods,
Yeah.
right? But I see that whole world of business influencers starting to change.
I could not agree more. Our platform right now is only focused on B2C and physical good products and all the baseline kind of like non B2B really platforms like no LinkedIn, Reddit, etc. You're thinking about, we focus on the Instagrams, TikToks of the world, right? But to your point, B2B influencing is honestly still in somewhat of its infancy. And I think it's only going to become much more powerful because it works the same way. And now more than ever, we have all these new channels, right? Like from podcasting to actually LinkedIn thought leadership to newsletters, and real business leaders read them. And for us, because we technically have two sides to always grow, not only the influencers, but also brands that come to the platform, utilizing a lot of B2B, even though we don't provide the service ourselves, reaching out and finding other tools to actually tap into B2B influencers has been our best growth channel to date. So that is only going to evolve and it becomes extremely powerful, even with the nano. Honestly, going back to the power of nano and micro influencers is like you as a thought leader, like maybe even more powerful than certain other Joe Rogans of the world, even though
Yeah.
obviously he has a huge, absolute
Yes.
massive reach. But like you speak to a specific audience, you have expertise in that audience, going back to the passion promoter side of things. Like Joe Rogan could promote some e-commerce platform, but like Joe Rogan's not an e-commerce seller
Yeah.
or hasn't been in marketing. And
Yes.
so as a trusted actually voice, like you may be more powerful than even he is to an audience. May have a larger reach, obviously, but if you can scale up those smaller thought leaders, like it can be insanely impactful. And we see also things that really no one's tapped into yet, but for both B2C and B2B is not just the digital world, but also the physical world, right? So like someone walking into a coffee shop and promoting their morning coffee or tea, you walking and going to get even service providing like your local mechanic, right? And promoting that. So there's a lot of ways that I think that influencer world is going to evolve, not just digitally, but also for mom and pop shops and both on the B2C and B2B side. We're still, as much as influencers are everywhere now, social platforms are evolving. Everyone actually has a voice in their communities now, and it's very exciting to be in the industry right now.
Wow. Yeah, and that's great to hear because I think that you're right. I think obviously if I've been going to the same mechanic for 20 years and I got 10,000 followers on some platform somewhere and I'm willing to just shoot a video while I'm sitting there in the waiting room. Oh, by the way, I'm here at Joe's whatever, and then when they do their, whether it be a promoted post or whether it be an organic post or whatever it is, we ring fence the reach of that, we geo target it. The brand themselves can repurpose that content across their socials. There's a lot of I hate the word synergy because I think it's overused, but there is definitely
Yeah,
some synergies there. But I think local and nano influencers, I think
absolutely.
I think that starts to present some really unique opportunities there. And especially for, there's not that many growth levers nowadays that a SaaS platform can pull, right? Like
Totally.
like there's their go to market. It's if they have to do all outbound or all paid in performance, it's going to cost them a fortune. And when
Yeah,
VCs and PEs invest in these SaaS platforms, it's all about how are you acquiring customers and is it scalable and sustainable? I know because I've helped SaaS vendors go out and secure funding, and that is always the first question. It's not what's your revenue, what's your profit, what's your
yep,
the first question is how are you acquiring customers? Is it scalable and is it sustainable? If
yep,
it's not, we want no part of this. And so there's not that many avenues these days to reach your target ICP audience
totally.
without tapping into people that are already in those communities to begin with.
Exactly. 100% agree. And the trust that's the biggest key, right? Like a lot of sellers, even people, it's crazy to me. I'll talk with um, sellers that are making millions of dollars and they're still very like novice in how to actually, besides doing PPC or ad campaigns, how to actually get their brand out or their SaaS platform out. And the reality is when they themselves also will if they're going to use a new system, like they want to trust experts in the field, right, when you have no knowledge of that. And so if you can tap into those communities, those trusted actually thought leader communities, it can be one of the most powerful forms of marketing out there. Completely agree with all those sentiments.
And I spend a lot of time on Reddit. I'm one of the 0.1% on there that's not using an alias of some variety, that's
Nice.
not anonymous on Reddit. I find that having a completely transparent profile is so rare, it actually gets better cut through as a result. Sometimes
Yeah,
you get slated harder because it's a pretty brutal Reddit's a pretty brutal place, but they don't pull any punches because most everybody's anonymous. So of course they act even worse than they would in real life speaking to you face to face. But
absolutely.
I do see almost every single day between 5 and 10 posts on like some of the e-commerce related subs where people have set up a new online store, they've set up a Shopify store, they've maybe procured some products, or maybe they're going to sell via drop shipping. They've spent maybe $5,000-$10,000 on Meta ads or Google ads or something like that, and they go, "I just don't know what I'm doing wrong. Can you go and
Yeah,
check out my website?" They say, "Roast me, go and tell me what I'm doing wrong," or whatever. And they're like, "What do I need to do to grow my business?" And historically, when you set up a new website, like obviously you were focused on SEO, you were focused on paid and performance. But I'm almost starting to think nowadays that influencer marketing maybe should be your very first traffic generation exercise, right? Because SEO takes time. It's going to take you 3 to 6 months to see any
absolutely.
benefits from SEO at all. Yes, paid and performance is like a light switch. You can turn it on and turn it off. But even that, from an ROI perspective, is decreasing every single day. CAC is sky high and rising using paid and performance marketing plays. And paid and performance does not bestow your website or your brand or your products with any level of trust. All you're
I
doing
agree
is
more.
driving traffic. And so the reality is that even if you don't have the perfect website, even if you don't have trust marks on your website, even if you don't necessarily have a founder story on the website or have contact information beyond a contact form on your website, with paid and performance marketing, if all that's true and you're driving traffic there, your conversion rate is going to be probably 0.2%, something stupid, right? Whereas
Absolutely.
if all that stuff is still true about your website and it's not incredibly trustworthy, but the halo of the influencer is what drove the traffic there in the first place, then that trust gets transferred from the influencer to your website, no matter how shit it is. So, of course, I'm going to advocate for not building a shit website. I'm going to
Yes.
advocate for doing everything right, crossing all your T's, dotting all your I's, making
Yep.
sure your products are actually good, making sure they're actually at a fair price, making sure you actually ship quickly, make sure you communicate well with your customers. All that crap is table stakes.
Yep.
But an ad that drives a piece of traffic to your website is not going to generate trust in and of itself. whereas traffic from an influencer will. And I think that, to me, is probably the single biggest differentiating factor. Your thoughts?
I could not agree more. And just to add to that, I think that new product launches in general is the best use case actually for influencers. Obviously, at any stage of your business, they can be valuable, but I would say they're at least 2x more valuable, if not 10x, when you're first launching out. And the reason behind that, to just add to all of the points that you just mentioned, besides trust, is first off, and especially utilizing product seeding, right? Because for a brand that's just starting out, you might not have a huge marketing budget. You just spent, as you mentioned, a few $1,000s, if not thousands of dollars, on getting inventory, setting up your brand, building a website, social media profiles, etc. You might not have the budget to even pursue online ads, PPC, etc. But what you do have is ideally inventory, right? You can ship out products to people. The first value to that is you're getting actually market research from those people. If your product sucks, the
They're
influencers
going
are
to
not
freaking
going to.
tell you.
Yeah, exactly. So right off the bat, that's valuable. They're not going to promote a product that's shit, and it's a best way to just get your product in the hands of some initial folks.
Real humans.
Absolutely. Second thing is content, right? Is that like when you first start out, you might have some product images, etc. Maybe you've taken a few images with you and your family and friends actually utilizing the product. But social proof is now so important when you're first launching, right? And so generating some initial content that you can now actually start a social profile with. When you decide to pursue ads, now you have content, and what the industry calls UGC, user generated content, performs better than even professional photos. So you're building up this almost war chest of kind of marketing material that you can now leverage, and you're increasing that social proof on your website to show, hey, look at all these consumers who actually love the product and how they utilize it, and all these different use cases. Like that will increase your natural conversions when people come to the site. And then last but not least, to your point, like it's a way to actually drive some initial traffic, because when you first start out, as you mentioned, probably the simplest thing is to try to optimize for SEO, but that does not happen overnight. That takes time. And the second thing is actually spending money on PPC, which costs a huge amount of money and cuts into your margins. So that's even just for also even a website. And a lot of our clients are now also really heavily pursuing influencer marketing for online marketplace growth. So those sellers who might have an e-commerce website channel, but they want to launch on Walmart, they want to launch on Target, they want to launch on
Amazon.
Amazon. Yeah.
Yeah.
And influencers are fantastic for those channels as well for a new product launch. And we're seeing honestly a huge amount of our clients pursuing our platform to grow those channels. And a big reason behind that is, let's just take Amazon as an example. Almost 4,000 new sellers enter Amazon every day, right? It used to be like you threw up a product, you'd rank, and you're off to the races and you're making a huge amount of money as long as the product was good. Now, almost 75% of people don't go past the first page when they're shopping on Amazon.
Just like the Google's first results page.
Exactly.
Same thing.
Yep. It's a search engine at the end of the day. Honestly, more people start actually their product search on Amazon than on Google, which is crazy. But when you first launch, you're probably on, if it's a competitive category, maybe on page 100,000. And so like, how do you get to a top page to even be shown, right? And the only way to do that is actually to tell Amazon, hey, my product is desirable, right? And Amazon, being the billion-dollar company it is, not trillion-dollar company, they use data for everything, right? Like when you're shopping on Amazon, they're looking where your mouse is, like they're seeing very specific details, and just at a baseline, like fundamental metrics. How many people come to your listing? How many people add your product to their cart? How many people buy? And when you first launch, if you are not shown anywhere, you're not making any sales, right? So Amazon has no data to determine, is this product going to be desirable
Or not.
to other people? Yeah. And on a first page, which is the place to be, right? You have about 45 listings. If Amazon decides they think your product is good and they put you there and your product sucks, they just lost a huge amount of money, right? That space is super, super valuable. And so Amazon's not going to take that risk unless they have data. And influencers become an amazing way to provide Amazon with data, or Walmart or Target, because you can drive external traffic sales there. Back to your point of, it's a trusted actually promotion. So usually conversions are a bit higher. And so you're giving Amazon that actually those metrics that it needs to say, hey, this product's actually pretty good. let's give them a shot at that top page. And now you're playing the game with, okay, you're shown, do people actually, the people who are now seeing your product, do they buy? But it's an amazing way to actually just skyrocket that initial growth. And so, yeah, whether you're selling on a marketplace, whether you're selling on your website, influencers are one of the best ways to just cost effectively strengthen your brand, but also get that initial traffic.
Yeah, that's actually a very good point. I hadn't really thought about the fact that obviously an influencer isn't necessarily just driving traffic to your website. They might be driving traffic to a PDP of that product on Amazon, on
Absolutely.
Walmart, on whatever. And so therefore, if there's that much direct traffic going to that PDP on Amazon, it tells Amazon this might be a trending product. Hey, this is a cool product. Hey, and then if that product page has a high conversion rate, then hey, maybe we're going to boost them up the PLP or the SRP, basically the search results page on Amazon for related queries, because this thing is doing really well when someone lands directly on the PDP from an external referrer. This product does really well. So there's something going on here. They may not have originated on Amazon to find that product. They may have landed there directly as a landing page, but it's also converting really well. So this helps to put the product on Amazon's radar, which means you likely are going to have a better job of SEO on the Amazon site than you would if you had zero traffic and you were relying on Amazon to drive all that traffic. And I've also heard that is one of the reasons why people now run PPC on Amazon, because they basically
Give them
want
the
to put it on
metrics.
Amazon's radar.
100%. 100%. Amazon, even over the past year, they just launched this program called the brand referral bonus. So they enable sellers now to create these unique links that if you
Yes.
tie it to this brand referral bonus, when you use that link in an external marketing campaign, Amazon will actually give you 10% savings, or up to, depending on the category, for any sale that comes off of Amazon, right? So if you're running an ad,
Wow.
an influencer campaign, that sale goes to Amazon, they're going to give you 10% savings as opposed to that customer on there. And the reason they are doing that is, first off, Amazon's not super cheap with their fees. But it's super valuable for Amazon to collect that initial data when a product just launches. And so normally most sellers, when they first launch the product and they're running, let's say, even a PPC or basically influencer campaign, et cetera, they're putting that traffic towards their website, right? Because they're like, I'm already spending a bunch of money here. I don't want to get
Yep.
hit with the Amazon transaction fees. And Amazon's realizing, hey, we're losing out on all this valuable metrics, and we're losing out on actually customers, because that customer coming to Amazon, they're not already searching there, right? They're going to the website first. So them incentivizing that is just owed to how valuable actually that traffic is and those sales are. And the brands that are actually pursuing these tactics when they first launch, it's night and day when you don't do anything. It might take you 6 months to get to the same place as you driving some initial external traffic, even running some initial PPC campaigns. But the external traffic is higher incentivized on marketplaces like Amazon. And again, you can get to a place like in a month, 2 months, where you'd be in 6 to 12 months just not doing that tactic. So it's
Well,
pretty powerful.
does that same program apply to buy with Prime? So if you're using the buy with Prime button somewhere and it drives that sale directly through Amazon, do you still qualify for that rebate?
I don't believe so, because it is a special link,
Oh,
but they are still, so the rebate on the brand referral bonus is not applied to that buy with Prime that you can integrate in, but
uh-huh.
Amazon is still valuing that sale in terms of SRP in the
Yes.
same way. So still valuable to do that tactic. You might not be saving on the transaction fees, but yeah, it has to be a unique, what they call attribution links that are utilized as opposed to
And is
the,
it just using like a standard UTM tag of some variety
yeah,
to signal that to
that's
Amazon?
exactly right. Yeah,
Wow. I did not know that was a thing, but a 10% savings on fees is substantial
it
if
is.
you're currently paying circa 40% all up.
Yeah,
When
exactly.
you combine your FBA fees, your stocking fees,
Yep,
your FBA transfer fees, your listing fees, your success fees, when you combine all that together, it could be 40 to 50% that you're hemorrhaging to Amazon. Plus, you're probably selling your items at the cheapest price you ever sell them for on Amazon, just to be competitive on Amazon to begin with. So your margins are lower, plus the net margin that you make is really bad. And so, I
absolutely.
mean, a 10% savings is substantial.
It's
Saves you
huge.
a quarter of your Amazon costs. That is worth pursuing.
Completely. Yeah, it's not cheap anymore to sell on Amazon. So 10% goes a long way, I will say.
Wow, I love this. I love this. And what is next for you guys? If you were to look out 6, 12, 18 months from now, what is on your radar? What do you not do today that you'd like to be doing tomorrow? Or is there anything your customers are asking for that you don't yet do that you want to add to the platform?
Absolutely. A big push for us in the future is integration actually with influencer marketing to online ads. If you're familiar with whitelisting, and for those of you listening who do not know what whitelisting is, basically when someone promotes your product, if you get permission from them, you can run ads through their profile. Going back to what we've been discussing a lot in this conversation is trust, right? And authenticity. And when you're running a promotion, it's coming from your brand, right? It's less trustworthy in some capacity, right? Especially if you're not a well-known brand. But if you could put ad dollars behind some kind of normal person or even some celebrity type profiles, right? And get that get that promotion out into the world in a predictable way, the conversions are crazy. And so basically we're building a lot of different tools to not only help sellers take that initial influencer content they're getting, but put ad money behind it to push it even further, boost it up on social platforms, and even on Amazon. Amazon also recently released somewhat of an Instagram feed. They call it the Amazon post system. And in the last 6 months, they've now enabled you to boost those posts or put ad dollars behind those posts. So you're running now image video content with kind of basically UGC. And so integrations into the post system, integrations into Instagram's whitelisting system, so that you do an initial collaboration with an influencer, you get some content, you get some initial traffic, but then you figure out what audience is actually really resonated with all of these things. And now I can put actually ad budget towards those and take my ROI to the next level. And so that's where we see a lot of our product roadmap going, and the future of a really synergy between the online ad worlds and also the influencer marketing worlds.
Wow, that's very cool. I love that. I love that idea, and making it easier. Again, sometimes these brands, they're not that savvy with this yet, and so they don't necessarily have a full-blown ad management team in-house, or they're working with an agency to manage all this. But if they could manage it all within your platform, and it's seamless and it's easy for them, and all they got to do is load up a business credit card, for example, into the platform, and basically, here we go. Here's my budget. Run with it.
Absolutely.
And yet, especially if you can recommend a budget based on the performance of that organic content, then you can say, here's some guidelines, here's what we recommend, here's the next steps. I think best next step is really important to present to brands where the opportunity arises and where it's a clear opportunity. Now, how do you guys make your money? Now, presumably you're a SaaS platform. Do you charge a fixed monthly fee? Do you charge on success of a campaign placed? What is your model, and how do you get paid?
Great question. So because we want to create a system of automation for brands, we don't have monthly fees. Like, it's basically a pay as you go. You only pay if you get a successful post. And so it's a flat fee per post. It gets cheaper the more you scale up. But we really wanted to make a system that's, because when we were utilizing the other platforms, it was like you paid this huge monthly fee, you got access to this big database, but then you start reaching out to people, and only a few of them reached out and got back to you. Half the people negotiated these massive fees, and you were like, I didn't incorporate that into my budget. Like, I wasn't expecting all of these things. So we want to make a system that's, these are all you are going to pay. Here's your max budget, and you set your goal. Platform sets out to achieve the goal. You pay as you go, and you pay for what's actually done. You never pay for something that actually isn't completed. And so, pretty simple model. For anyone listening, whoever wants to get more details on pricing, feel free to reach out to us at stackinfluence.com. But that's the basic to it.
And just ballpark, what if I was per placement,
Yeah,
roughly, what are the bands that I would fall into as a brand?
absolutely. Our flat fees range from $25 to $45, depending on scale. There are
Yep.
some product category restrictions, right? If you have a way more niche product that's going to be much harder for the platform to accomplish, you may have to pay a little extra for us to actually reach those goals. But yeah, try to keep costs very low and get as much value for the end brand while still also providing value to the influencer to make sure it's worth their while to actually do these types of collaborations.
Wow. Yeah. Pay for performance.
Yeah,
It's a good model. It's a skin in the game model.
that's
So you
exactly
obviously
right.
back the platform, you back your influencers, you back the results. If you didn't, you'd be charging a flat fee regardless.
Yeah.
So I like the skin in the game model. I really do. Listen, this has been a fantastic conversation. Other than stackinfluence.com and reaching out to you on LinkedIn, what is the best way to get a hold of you if I'm a brand and I've heard this and I go, wow, this sounds really cool. I'm just the novice that has been described, and I want to start tapping into this network of micro and nano influencers that will probably help push my brand and propel it in directions that I maybe could never do on my own, no matter how much money I spent. What's the best way to get a hold of you and have that conversation?
Feel free, honestly, to email my personal email. It's william@stackinfluence.com. But if you want to go check out our website, stackinfluence.com, we have contact forms there. You can fill those out, obviously learn more information about it, but feel free to send me a personal email or reach out via LinkedIn.
Wow. Absolutely love it. Now, as we do come down to the end of our time together, this is where I get to flip the script. I get to hand the microphone over to you. I get to let you ask me one question. Any question you like, could be personal or professional. So, Mr. William Gasner from Stack Influence, what is your question for me today?
My question is, what inspired you to start the E-commerce Edge podcast?
Great question. For me, there was two primary motivators. One is this industry has treated me really well, and I have built a life over the last 25 years in this industry that I could have only ever dreamed of, and I'm super grateful, and it's a way of sending the ladder back down again. That's the altruistic side.
Very admirable.
The benefit side to me is that when pre-podcast, if I would have slid into your DMs, for example, on LinkedIn, and I would have said, hey, looks like you're doing some cool stuff in the space. Can we grab a virtual coffee? Here's my Calendly link. Can we have a chat and talk shop and learn from each other, whatever? 9 times out of 10, or 90, actually probably 99% of the time, it's going to be a no, because people assume you're trying to sell them something, right? You're trying to pitch them, you're trying to sell them, you're trying to get some investment, you're trying to whatever, right? And with a podcast, it's just the opposite. It's like
Yeah,
99% of the time, if I slide into somebody's DMs and I say, and I point them to my podcast page and they see that I've got almost 500 episodes of my podcast, and I say, hey, look, it looks like you're doing some really interesting things in our space. I'd love to have you on the podcast to chat about it. There's a quid pro quo, and there's some sort of benefit to them in that
absolutely.
interaction in terms of exposure. Like there's a benefit for both parties here. And so it definitely opens up doors to have conversations that I don't think I could have any other way. And it starts to establish a little bit more credibility, a little bit more trust in me as part of what I do. But honestly, I started my podcast long before I ever had my consultancy. So it was more of a way to have super powerful learning conversations for me that had a benefit to the guest and had a benefit to my audience. And that's really how it started, to be honest.
That's fantastic. And a great reason to start a podcast. You're inspiring me to start one myself.
Do it, man. Do it. 2025 is the year of the podcast, man. It's, hey, look, it decided the election. So at the end of the day, it's pretty powerful.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
William, fantastic conversation. I super appreciate your time. Can't wait to speak to you again soon. Are you a B2B or D2C e-commerce merchant? Then head over to greenwoodconsulting.net to learn how we can help you scale your business.